welcome to Amazing You podcast and YouTube channels. To the new people watching, or whether you are a subscriber, very warm welcome. This is the channel where stories of resilience, triumph, and unwavering hope come to life. And in each episode, we dive into the inspiring journey of individuals who have faced the toughest challenges heads-on and emerged victorious. So join us, everybody, as we share powerful stories that transcend adversity, reminding you that resilience is a force within us all. I am your host. My name is Dr. Rani Thanacoody. I am a Mars-Venus life and relationship coach, clinical hypnotherapist using rapid transformational therapy, astrologer, tarot reader, compassion practitioner, and star magic practitioner. And today, I am very excited because I've been waiting to talk to this gentleman for a long time, and finally we are here. So I have the pleasure to introduce you to the wonderful Jon Kohrs. Jon is an author and a coach. So very warm welcome, Jon, to Amazing You.
Thank you. It's an absolute honor to get to talk to you today. Your credentials and the mix of all the modalities you bring to the world, I'm just excited to explore how do you see resilience through all these different angles and modalities that you've experienced in your lifetime.
Yes, I know. That's so interesting. We definitely need to have another conversation about that, Jon. Yes. Jon, so please tell us about your story very briefly of how you became an author and a coach, Jon.
Yeah, let me start with the author, which is very new. I would have never thought in my wildest dreams I would ever write a book. The book is called Horribly Lovely. So first book. Most of my world before that was in the business world, doing organizational change and innovation or creative design work. So the coaching aspect has really evolved through most of my life, from being a coach in the business world to teams, to being a coach for how to work in a whole new way, especially for those teams in business that are working at the edge of trying to create something new in the world. And I find there's so much fear at those places. And in that fear and adversity, there's this introspection and awareness that can come through. And so I feel like my coaching has evolved now using the Enneagram, for those listeners of yours that understand the Enneagram, using that as a framework for how do we help business leaders and business teams really embrace change within that corporate setting.
Thank you so much, Jon. There's so many interesting questions to ask you. And first of all, congratulations for your book. And you mentioned that you've been working in that area of change management, in coaching, in businesses where there's a lot of fears. So tell us a bit more about your interesting book, first of all. What is in that book? What would you like to share with us that is included in that book, that the audience can have a little bit of a snippet of what's in that book so that they can go and find it?
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. I think it speaks a lot to all the modalities. We started this conversation, the modalities you've taught yourself, likely as a channel into understanding yourself. And I think most of my business clients would maybe not read this book. It's not really a business book. It's a personal novel around one man's transformation through love and intimacy. It's very much my journey with those modalities, with shamanism, with tarot reading, with astrology, with Carl Jung as kind of a backdrop into understanding the psyche. It's very much written over the last decade in little bits of trying to understand who I am and this adversity and these challenges, especially around romantic love. What am I learning through this adversity? What am I learning about myself? And I think one of the key themes of the book, for those interested in reading, is really about reparenting yourself. How do you go to these deep places inside yourself and find the mother inside yourself or the father inside yourself, the masculine and feminine, that can start to reparent those parts of you that have been lost along the way through trauma or just through splitting? I think that's very much one theme throughout the book. And how do you find that gift through the adversity, through romantic love? And how do you look at it not through victimization or through pain or through loss, but through a beauty of two souls really mirroring back what each needs to learn in this lifetime? I'd say that's the essence of the book. Within that, there's a lot about what is spirituality, what is not spirituality, what is love. There's an exploration of trying to understand love within it. There's an exploration into Jung and what is the human psyche, and how do you navigate this both in this world, but through dreams and through the transpersonal space beyond what we see every day.
Wow. It's as if you are a mirror of me. It's so interesting because you studied astrology, you studied different modalities, and you talk about finding love, because this was part of my journey too, in finding love. But in finding love, I found that love is within me, that we are the greatest love of our life, which is us. We first have to discover that's the greatest relationship we will ever have. And it's so beautiful you talk about you having experienced that. And I think it's very brave of you to share all that, because so many men, are watching and listening or going through difficult times at this point of time, and not knowing that how important it is to look within ourselves. Can you share with us about the importance of doing that inner work? What were the transformation you've seen after doing all this inner work in your life, Jon?
Yeah, so I want to ask you so many questions about finding love within yourself too. It's such I feel like it's such a surface statement people use, is just love yourself or take care of yourself or find the love in yourself. But that simple question, there's so much depth of what does that mean? Boy, there's so many places we can go with this question. I would say maybe a story would be the best way. And I would like to think so many romantic relationships, the astrology, even studying the Enneagram, getting into Jung and really studying Carl Jung, all those were born from romantic relationships, which reminded me who I really am. And I think that's the essence of love, beyond just a romantic partnership or how we know it. It's this constant, never-ending, unconditional force that's constantly trying to bring us back to who we really are, to remind us that we're so much more important and so much bigger than we ever give ourselves credit for. And I think when you can feel the beauty of that love that's always knocking at your door, that always is trying to strip back layers, even when it's painful, so that you can see this diamond of who you are. I think there's a magic in that. And I know that's very conceptual. Maybe a funny story is in a past romantic relationship, I would always find myself burning things in her kitchen. We would cook, and for the life of me, every single time I would cook, I would burn things, and there would be smoke. And she was very particular about her apartment at that time. So getting smoke on the couch or smoke in the room, it was a big deal. It almost pushed her out of her own sacred space in this apartment. And I remember one time I was cooking, and the alarm was going off and smoke was pouring from the pan, and I was throwing water on the pan, which you should not do. And she left. She got really frustrated and left. And even that simple moment, there was this idea of what does this whole scene in this movie I'm in represent? And, I was reminded of the womb, of here I am with a nurturing woman, and I am I am taking heat and kicking her out of her space so that I can take over that space. And, one analysis of that was, am I unconsciously trying to find a womb to enter and then kick people out of it? And, I think in some of these seeds that are everyday normal events that we could miss, there's a beauty and an awareness of it. And, that little doorway, I think, led me to a lot of work around a twin in the womb that passed away that I didn't realize, and how much everything I was doing was trying to bring me back to a womb, to heal from this deep aloneness I felt my entire life. And it's just so funny. It was in the romantic relationships that really weren't helping me feel alone, but they were reminding me of that memory. And so many of those things branched off into other work and other inner work that eventually led me to, how do I get in touch with these parts of me before they were born? How do I get in touch with this little boy that is just learning, yearning, and trying to learn what love is in a new way? So I think that is a tip of the iceberg of both in the book. I describe some of these things, but how do you really experience love of yourself? Not by just saying it, but really feeling it in how your psyche is trying to create an experience for you.
Wow, that is very deep what you experience, how our relationship, our relationship, if both people are invested in doing the inner work, they can help each other to heal from the trauma, like your trauma of having been in the womb, because I do hypnotherapy, and many times the clients will experience being in the womb and feeling the pain of their mom. Mm-hmm. So it starts from there very, very often. And that's where a lot of trauma happen. It's because the baby is so sensitive to what the baby hears and feels, even if the baby can't see, but the baby can feel. And from there, the disconnection starts with ourselves, Mm-hmm. That's where it comes also from past lives, but mostly a lot in this lifetime as well, from the womb that we experience so much within the 9 months, and our mothers go through all sorts of emotions because of their hormones as well, and their surroundings, which is not always safe place for them. And I think that's really important that you touch that, because about it's trauma that we need to look within, and it's not, we don't find this when we are as we grow up, because we when we are in a conscious state, like you are doing a lot of work and you realize that your relationship was mirroring to you something that triggered you to look back. But I think you have to do a lot of inner work to arrive at that point where you came to be able to see that in your life. So I would like to ask you, because you talk about parenting the child, parenting those wounded parts of ourselves who's experienced so much, what would you suggest how the best way you use to reparent yourself that the audience can apply to them, to their own life?
Yeah. It's such a great question. And I really appreciate the back and forth and going to these places of love that people may not talk about. Sometimes we think love is ooey gooey and just uplifting and brings joy, but what is that type of love that helps us to fully exist? And when we say like whole person or fully exist, part of that is every memory that we have, and these experiences are there for a reason. Even a feeling of being in the womb, or feeling my mom's cortisol and anxiety and stress even before I was born. Why did I feel those? And what was the gift of those? If we look at every moment of life as a gift that was given us, even if there's fear or sadness or anger or joy, how do we learn from those? So for me, I'd say there there's so much to unpack in such little time, but I would say this combination of a twin, it represented part of my feminine that died in the womb. So there is a quest to reclaim the feminine and maybe project an identity or borrow an identity from the feminine around me, because it may have been split before I came out. And there's also dynamics of, how well did your parents get along, and how did you experience conflict? So even going to the Enneagram, I can have a framework to understand some of these dynamics of why there might have been tension between mother and father. So I think there's something intentionally that I was born into this life that I just missed in parenting. And I don't lament it. I feel like in that gap enabled me to say, how do I do this myself? And I think some of those themes for me in reparenting have been, how does the masculine and feminine really co-create together, together, and how do they work together? So some of this work is, going to Peru and understanding my masculine qualities are, strength, vision, protection, and compassion. But that's maybe not the divine masculine. It's what I bring. Or getting back from Mongolia, understanding the feminine is radiance, and absorption, and sensuality, and compassion. So how do we go into these deep masculine and feminine places inside of ourselves to understand that both fully exist? And how do we find harmony and co-creation between these, where they're not arguing all the time inside of us? Mm-hmm. And maybe if we experience that in childhood, is just a reflection back to us of the disagreement inside of us. And maybe society shows us that too, that this disagreement and conflict we see between masculine and feminine is because it exists in us. And for me, that was one theme of, to reparent yourself, there needs to be a masculine and feminine that can hold that space for that child, to both rebirth the child, but hold it as he or she is trying to develop. That's one place I found in maybe a prerequisite into parenting yourself. I think that there's got to be, I think for me at least, it's like there's so much programming to unlearn. Just to say, to reparent yourself, you're going to borrow something, or read a book or take from somebody else. But how do you unlearn those things to find a new way to parent yourself that's maybe intuitively known inside yourself, you're just not letting emerge yet? So sorry, that was a really long answer. I hope that answered it.
Yes, thank you, Jon. Yes, because when we are reparenting that child, there are so many beliefs that we need to peel away, Yeah. Because we've formed so many beliefs throughout those childhood, those younger years about ourselves, and those beliefs started to hurt us. And we took things personally, and we started to adopt certain coping mechanism later to survive and to live in the world, to be able to find our place. And that's a very important point that you made, to bring together within us, as we heal that inner part of us, those inner parts of us, to bring the masculine and the feminine. Yeah, that is really, really very important, because we all have the masculine and the feminine within us. It's not that you have more masculine and feminine. We all have it inside of us. And it's about really bringing that balance again. Yeah, and I think that's so important. But it's because you said, like, society has played such a role in how we look at the masculine and the feminine. Yeah. And it's about now bringing those two together equal, It's not one is better than the other, no. It's like both of them need to coexist together to bring that balance. Yeah.
Exactly. And I found, even if I listen to a masculine part, there's a masculine part that is maybe in a little bit more of a shadow form that has some unconsciousness, and not all of that unconsciousness is dark or bad, but there's some unknown things. And if that part is parenting the child on an unconscious basis, there's a different a form of that. I remember my therapist, we would be in session. We were in session for, I think, over 2 years. And she's like, you know, your inner child never comes out a lot during these sessions. You never really talk about him that much. And I said something very flippant. I'm like, why would I care what he has to say? He doesn't know what's going on. And I caught myself and I'm like, why am I so mean and hard to this? Like, where is a different form of masculine, or where is that feminine, and what is a quality in me as a feminine, I think, is a softness and a holding. Like, why is that part not coming through? So I think when you start to see yourself of how do you parent your child inside yourself, it's different. And you know, I have 3 children, and I was divorced. And I always had so much shame and guilt over my role as a dad. I felt like I was never there enough, or when I was there, I was never present. And I would like whip myself, like almost whip my soul of like, how can I be a better dad? I would spend a lot of time just crying and lamenting, not getting divorced, but missing so much of their life. And I realized, you know, that's missing the child inside of myself. I'm missing that life. And maybe there's a part projecting that out to my kids, and they're happy and fine. But even my kids are holding this loving space as a mirror of how do I really go to those places and go to my own child inside myself that's yearning to have a real relationship with myself. But I don't feel like I could do that until I really found the masculine and feminine, and how they actually want to coexist together.
Yes, and I think it's so important to bring the masculine and the feminine together within us. Yeah, because that's when we can bring that wholeness within ourselves again, without waiting, expecting others to make us feel whole. It's about us bringing our energy into that wholeness again. Yeah. And thank you, Jon. There's so many things to ask you questions about, and there's another thing that I am always very interested. It's about, you mentioned about experiencing shamanism. Can you tell us a bit more how that has helped you on your healing journey?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. And I don't even know what's written about shamanism and reparenting yourself, and even some of the work you're in with hypnotherapy and the methods you bring. I'd be fascinated to explore these. I would, you know, when I was a little kid, one of the most recurring memories I had was sitting in the bathtub and just floating out to the galaxy. And there were these black tar-like monsters that were always coming around me. So I would spend hours each day. I mean, this was years and years and years of doing this. I feel, and maybe my memory might be off, but my psyche remembers it this way, of building weapons and shields and armor and trying to feel what was getting absorbed into me and what I could protect from. And again, if we think about it, it's so interesting with the womb of, oh yes, you're first, before you're born, there's a feminine that you absorb into you, and you're absorbing that energy. So, you know, was it real I was floating in the galaxy, or is this just like a recreation of something, of absorbing something in this womb-like state of darkness? Who knows? Regardless, I think there's an interesting play of shamanism, of how do we go to these other realms beyond what we see and really understand all the different things that are happening that are really influencing our psyche. And I think even Jung, his writing, he was very much a shaman and went all around the world exploring the unconscious and the depths of what's really there. So going to Peru in 2017 really was my first meeting with a shaman, and connecting to the mountains and the trees, and just being in that space of listening and hearing what was going on beyond that could inform my healing from a different perspective. Even bookending, I just got back from Mongolia on a 2-week trip with shamans, same type of same type of approach, is connecting the mountains and asking questions and talking to spirit. And I think there's so many answers, whether that world is real and it's outside of you, or whether that's all inside of you. I don't think it makes a difference. There's a faith and a connection to something deeper that will give you truth. And I think in that truth, which I find shamanism is a good doorway into finding really what is reality and what is truth, can help cut through so much of that noise and lead to, what do I really need to do to start loving myself and really see who I really am in this reality. So that's where shamanism has played in my life, I feel.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that, because I've got a few friends that I have met recently, and they've been going through some psychedelics experience to help them to go deeper, accessing those unconscious parts that they couldn't access, that was blurred, there was a veil. So when they did that, they told me they received so many answers that helped them where they needed to be so that they can move forward. So, but people have to be ready, because these are deep, deep experiences. You have to be really ready. So anybody, just do your research and be ready when you go. It's not something you just smoke weed or take mushroom. No, it's much deeper than that.
Yes. And it lacks a body intelligence. Yeah. I feel like this mind-body connection, and what does trauma exist between those, or anxiety. I know you speak a lot about that. I think there's I think some of these alternative methods bring that connection where it's not just in your head. You have to feel it in your body and unlock this intelligence there. And then the heart has to experience the feelings of all that. And I think not being in your head provides a doorway into deeper, richer answers.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think in this day and age, we live so much in our head and very little in our heart, And it's so important to bring that connection to our heart, because that's where all the treasures lies, inside of the heart. And as we dive in, we find more things to discover about ourselves, because nothing is outside of us. Everything is inside of us. So we have to look within. And that's where we will find that place of wholeness again.
Exactly.
For anybody who is listening and watching today, anyone who is facing some tough times, what advice or steps can you offer them to navigate and to eventually overcome adversity, Jon?
Yeah. A very simple way to start. And I wish I would have done this years and years ago, decades ago, when I was facing my own adversity. I think so often I felt I was a victim to the adversity, and I fought against it so much. And it was something that if I could just overcome or fight or rise above, then I would be fine. And I maybe now see a different picture, that what if I created that adversity for myself? And what if this journey was my own creation? And what if I had to come to terms with that adversity? And one of mine that I speak about in the book is addiction to alcohol, to shopping, to work, to love. So many addictions. But what if that adversity was all my own doing? And if I ask myself and truly take ownership of it, and I would say, what is the one most important thing I need to know about this adversity I'm facing, and treat it like it was a real relationship with adversity? What would the answer be if I asked myself that question? What do I most need to know about this adversity that I'm facing? And start to dialogue and be in the adversity, like be in the tumble of it, be in the fear and the sadness and the anger and the joy and the pain. Like be in that and learn as much as you can from it, knowing it's your own creation.
Thank you, Jon. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is really powerful, because we are the creator of our life, We are the manifester. We can manifest whatever we desire. So everything is in our hands. So we can decide the kind of life we want, whether it's a great life, we can choose because it's based on our actions and our thinking and on our behaviors. So make it a great one, everyone, because you have only one life. You don't know where you will be after that. So make it the best life that you can be and be a better version of yourself today and every day. Just make yourself, just keep being the best version of you each day. And how can people contact you and stay updated with your work? Jon, would you please tell us?
Absolutely. You can find me online, just Jon Kohrs. You can Google me. I have an Instagram account. I'm not on a lot of social media anymore, so that makes it a little bit more difficult. The easiest way is to go to horriblylovely.com, and we can maybe send them the link. That's the community for the book. And what I would trying to do is to create a support community where people can read the book and go to a place where they can talk to one another and I can speak to them, not as a coach, but just a person that's relating to a common human experience. And I hope the book provides a container for people to really be vulnerable and express the things happening in their own life around love and intimacy and their own journey towards wherever they're headed. And for me, that was kind of reparenting and finding the father in myself. So come to the website. You can join the community. I hope more books are like this in the future. And the writing provides a way for us all to be able to express ourselves in the way we need to.
Thank you so much, Jon, for sharing all that, because writing is so healing. You know, like you said, you have to put so much in of your feelings, of your emotions, and be vulnerable in the writing. And I found that too in the writing. When the publisher was saying, oh, if some of you might cry, I say, no, I don't think it's me. I've done all crying for the past 4 years. But indeed, there were still things inside when I started to write. And I was surprised. I say, wow, yeah, writing is very healing. Yeah, so it's another way to heal yourself. And because the more vulnerable you put yourself, the more open you are, the quicker is the healing. You know, it's not about hiding things people won't know. No, it's about really opening that heart, those parts of you. It's giving that a voice, those parts of ourselves. Yeah.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Jon. Sorry.
Oh, I just said beautifully said. Absolutely beautifully said.
Thank you.
I can tell you have a gift for understanding the power of expression and writing and how healing that can be. It really is a profound thing.
It is. Yeah. You know, Jon, thank you so much for coming, for sharing. And I would like to wish you all the best in everything that you do and in your traveling. Keep traveling, keep discovering. And thank you for taking your time to be with the audience today. And thank you to the audience for watching, for sharing, and for subscribing. And remember that you are amazing. You have always been, and you always will be amazing. Lots of love, everybody. Bye-bye.